With the 2019 NFL Draft vastly approaching, I've got a list at each position of 5 players that I think are the best amongst their position. We're going to talk about the position that garners the most attention first, QBs. Top 5 QBs in the 2019 NFL Draft. Next. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the list. Top 5 QBs in the 2019 NFL Draft. Let's jump into the list. We start at number 5 with a QB that I think is vastly underrated in this draft, an NC State quarterback, Ryan Finley. Here's a guy, 39 career starts, 25-14 in those 39 career starts, 60 touchdowns, over 25 interceptions throughout his career, 64% completion percentage, 6'4", 212, looks the part of an NFL starting caliber quarterback. Now, a lot of people have pegged him to the New England Patriots. He looks the part of a Patriot. We'll see where he lands. He was almost number 4 on this list, but I think the guy that comes in at number 4 deserves to be there, and I'll tell you why when we get there. But you look at the strengths for Ryan Finley, played in a pro-style offense at NC State, has the experience, 39 career starts. So he's a guy that has been a starter in college football and knows what it takes to get it done. Anticipation. You see a guy on tape that throws with anticipation. Some of the reason why he does that is because he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. If you're comparing him to the other quarterbacks in this draft, his arm doesn't quite stack up, but he does make up for the difference in arm strength with great anticipation when throwing the football and touch. His size. He has prototypical QB size. Sure, he could be a little bit heavier, 212 pounds, not the heaviest of weight for a 6'4" quarterback, but nonetheless, he's plenty big and tall for the position of quarterback. You look at his cons, however, arm talent, just mentioned that, not the greatest arm strength for Ryan Finley. He's a guy that doesn't have the kind of arm talent that you would look for in a top quarterback in a draft class, hence he's at number 5. Ankle injury in 2015, something to keep in mind. Again, it's 2019, so you don't really want to harp on that, but it's something in the Carfax report that needs to be mentioned. That's why he ended up at NC State and not at Boise, where he originally was the starter in 2015. And finally, what is his role as a quarterback at the next level? I think that's the biggest thing that people struggle with. Is he a true difference maker, a guy that can elevate the play of others around him, or is he a caretaker of a football team? Is he a guy that manages the game, gets you into the proper down and distance, moves the sticks, but truly can't go out and win you a football game? I think that's the biggest question when talking Ryan Finley, and that's why he comes in at number 5. You go to number 4 on the list. We're talking about Duke quarterback Daniel Jones. 6'5", 220 pounds. Here's a 3-year starter with 36 career starts under his belt. 17-19 in those 36 career starts. So no winning record here, but a lot of that is due to the level of talent around him and not so much his play on the football field. And when you look at Daniel Jones and his body of work, there are a number of things that you have to question, and there are a number of things that you like. He's a big, long quarterback that I feel like has the potential to get much better, but right now I just don't think he's ready to be a starter in the National Football League, as may be the case for all of these guys. But when you look at quarterbacks, and we've seen some in the past where we've thought, hey, if this guy had to be pressed into action week 1 or week 4, as we saw with the guys that were drafted in the first round last year, could he come in and make a difference? I don't feel like Daniel Jones is ready for that kind of spotlight right now. Speaking of which, let's get to his pros. Here's a guy that has had great coaching under David Cutcliffe. He coached Peyton Manning, he coached Eli Manning, and a lot of people compare Daniel Jones to that of Eli Manning, especially when you're talking about his demeanor, and that's something we'll get to a little bit later on. But he's had really good coaching at Duke under David Cutcliffe. Athleticism. This is a guy that used his legs quite a bit at Duke. You watch him on tape and you see a guy that is running the football quite frequently. Speaking of which, toughness. because of his ability to run and them running it as often as they did at Duke, he showed a lot of toughness, not afraid to stay in the pocket, take a shot, but also lower his shoulder at the end of a run. That's not something you want him doing at the next level, but it is something that you must know. He is a tough guy. Speaking of toughness, he did come back after an injury to his clavicle 2 weeks later after having surgery. So again, that shows the toughness that Daniel Jones brings to the table. Size at 6'5", 220, good NFL quarterback size. And so that's not something you have to worry about with him. And experience. Here's a guy that's a 3-year starter at Duke, 36 career starts. So you're getting a guy with the experience that you're looking for as a starter moving to the next level. You go to his cons. Here's a guy that has a demeanor that you question. Is he a leader of men? Can he galvanize those guys in the huddle? Can he have a voice that is authoritative enough to get those that are in the huddle to follow him? That's the question that you have with Daniel Jones. Almost the same question we asked with Marcus Mariota. Is he too passive to be a leader at the next level? That's something that I kind of struggle with Daniel Jones. When you listen to him talk, very soft-spoken, seems shy in environments where he needs to be a little bit more aggressive, seems passive. We'll see if there is anything to that or not at the next level. You also look at injury. He had an injury last year to his clavicle. Like I said, required surgery, came back 2 weeks later. So that shows you toughness and want to. But again, he's a guy that has to dial it back from an aggressive running the football style standpoint. He has to learn how to slide, get down, and get out of harm's way. He's quick to lower the shoulder. He cannot do that at the next level. And production is something that I also question with him. Again, not a lot of talent around Daniel Jones at Duke, so keep that in mind. And that's why he came in at number 4 instead of number 5. Ryan Finley had an immense amount of talent around him throughout his career at NC State. A number of guys have been drafted as skill players that were around Ryan Finley, whether last year, the year before that, or even this year with Kelvin Harmon, his receiver, potentially being a 1st or 2nd round pick. Daniel Jones hasn't been benefited with those types of players around him. It's really been all Daniel Jones and really no one else. And so you have to take that into consideration. But still, the production isn't really something that lends you to believe that he's going to be a true difference maker at the next level. Instead of him being a difference maker, I feel like he's a caretaker, which is why Daniel Jones and his production startled me enough to the point where I think he's the 4th best quarterback. And by a long shot. I think the first 3 separate themselves, and then you get to Daniel Jones at number 4. At number 3 checks in Dwayne Haskins, the Ohio State University quarterback, 6'3", 220, 1-year starter at Ohio State, 13-1 in that single season as the starter, 70% completion percentage, 54 touchdowns accounted for throughout his career at Ohio State. 50 over 8 in his 1 season. So he definitely took care of the football while setting a bunch of Ohio State passing records in just his lone season as Buckeye starter. So you go to his strengths and the things that make Dwayne Haskins potentially the first quarterback off the board in this draft. Size, 6'3", 220, looks the part of an NFL quarterback. Winning mentality, that's something that you can't teach and that this guy has. He's got a winning mentality. It's not always pretty with Dwayne Haskins, but somehow, some way, and some of that is the talent around him. You play at Ohio State and you're playing against Northwestern, or you're playing against Maryland, or you're playing against one of these other teams, you find a way to win, but that also starts with the quarterback helping you find a way to win. And in that Maryland game where things didn't always go their way, they needed every single Dwayne Haskins offering to win that football game, and he came through similar to the way he did on the road at Penn State. So again, winning mentality is something that comes with the package of Dwayne Haskins. Arm talent. Here's a guy that you don't question his arm talent. You do question where the ball goes at times. Don't allow the 70% completion percentage to fool you. A lot of bubbles, a lot of underneath throws, a lot of tosses to guys like Parrish Campbell in the backfield on jet sweep type plays where they catch it and they get a completion for that. So again, don't allow the 70% completion percentage to cloud your judgment. There are a lot of misses and bad ones on tape with Dwayne Haskins, but the arm talent isn't something up for debate. He can definitely sling it with the best of them in this draft. And mechanics, he's a guy that went through all of the camps growing up. He is obsessed with the technical aspect of being a quarterback. So his mechanics are pretty good. Footwork, how he throws the football, his footwork can be a little sloppy at times when off balance. But when he's got time in the pocket, his mechanics are pitcher-esque. You go to his cons, however, athleticism, it's not there. And he's not a willing runner, although he will run it at times. He'd much rather stay in the pocket and deliver the football. Nothing wrong with that, except when it's time to go, you gotta go, and sometimes he's not as willing to go and get what's there on a play and keep it moving. So we saw the lack of athleticism at the combine. He claims he's gonna run it again at his pro day. There's no need. You're a 5 whatever quarterback. Leave it as is. Your athleticism isn't what's going to get you drafted anyhow. His deep ball accuracy is a little scary. It's very inaccurate, a lot of underthrown balls. I think he tries to be a little too fine when he throws the deep ball instead of just letting it rip. Sometimes he doesn't have the proper timing when throwing the deep ball. All of these things kind of coincide with what is probably one of his biggest issues, and that's lack of experience. Here's a guy with only 14 career starts under his belt. And a lot of the mistakes you see on tape with him are due to a guy that just hasn't seen enough coverages, hasn't seen enough defenses and complex schemes, hasn't seen enough of what's being thrown at him to know how to properly adjust. And because of that, that's something that I think is easily overlooked, because you feel like you get him into your camp, you can coach him up and have him overcome some of the things you saw on tape. It's like his footwork when having to reset in the pocket and then deliver the ball. That's when you see some of his most inaccurate throws. You move Dwayne Haskins off the spot, you force him to reset his feet and deliver. He usually doesn't deliver the football accurately. And so that's also something to take into consideration when talking Dwayne Haskins. But all in all, he's the number 3 quarterback on my list. And I think he's a guy that will come off the board in the top 10 picks of the 2019 NFL draft. Now you get to number 2, and this is one of my favorite guys in this draft. I'm talking about Missouri quarterback Drew Lock. Here's a guy, 6'4", 225, 3-year starter, and really, if you want to count the amount of starts he had in his freshman year, you're looking at essentially a 4-year starter at Missouri, 46 games under the belt of one Drew Lock. Here's a guy that I felt like got better as the years progressed, and I really thought he was being held back by his previous offensive coordinator and Josh Heupel. A lot of underneath throws at the line of scrimmage, a lot of getting the ball quickly out of the hands of Drew Lock. And it was either feast or famine with Drew Lock under Josh Heupel. It was either a short pass quickly to a receiver in their hands, or it was something deep. And so you saw completion percentage, I thought, suffer because of that. And then under Derek Dooley in a pro-style offense, under a guy that has been in the league, I thought that Drew Lock played some of his best football in 2018, and that's why you saw the uptick in completion percentage, and you saw a guy that looked so much more confident. And I know a lot of people want to talk about 2017 when he had all of the touchdowns, 44 over 13. I'd much rather take the 2018 version, 28 over 8, than the 2017 version of 44 over 13 with Drew Lock. Speaking of which, you look at why he's my number 2 quarterback on my board. Size at 6'4", 225, that goes without saying. That's really good NFL quarterback size. Arm talent, to me, his arm talent is second to none in this draft. If you want to throw Kyler Murray in there and say they're right there with each other, I have no problems with that. But when you talk about arm talent in this draft, I think the guy that stands above the rest is Drew Lock, and you see it when he throws the deep ball and just how far he throws the deep ball. Speaking of deep ball, he has the most beautiful deep ball in this draft, and it's not even close. His accuracy on the deep ball is uncanny, puts beautiful air underneath the ball to allow his receivers to run underneath and catch it, throws a very catchable football as well. I think there's a lot to like here with Drew Lock, including his athleticism. He's a guy that can run. You see it on tape. They run some read option with him. He keeps it. He's able to get out of bounds. He's able to slide. He's able to pick up a lot of yardage with his legs and be a threat in the red zone, be a threat to extend plays. These are all things you like about Drew Lock. He's tough. He's a guy that will stand in the pocket, take a shot to deliver the football. You see that time and time again on tape. And also, he is a guy with tons of experience, the most of any of these quarterbacks. As I mentioned, 46 games as a starter at Missouri. And oh, by the way, he's the guy that I like to refer to as a program reviver / savior. Those are also guys that I love. Guys that have the program on their back and have to take their teams to new heights. When he got to Missouri, they weren't the best of programs and weren't in the best shape. Matty Malk left them in quite a bind, and Drew Lock picked this university up, put them on his shoulders, and led them to bowl games in each of the last 2 seasons. So you go to his cons, and this is a guy that I think you look at the turnovers and they would scare anybody. I understand why you would have a little bit of pause and hesitation on Drew Lock with some of the turnovers. And I think some of the turnovers and some of the inaccuracy that you may see with him comes from his footwork. And I know a lot of people make a lot of his footwork. I'm not one of the people that get all hung up on his footwork. I don't think his footwork is actually that bad, but there are times when his footwork is shoddy and it does result in some errant throws and some bad decisions. Speaking of which, the footwork is one thing, but the decision making is another, and that's something he will have to clean up at the next level. There are certain times where you look at Drew Lock and you say, what were you thinking there, bro? Like, you can't take a sack there. You gotta throw it away here. You can't make that mistake in the red zone there. These are things that he's gonna have to clean up. And a guy with his level of experience, you don't expect certain mistakes from. But again, he is a guy that has all of the physical tools necessary. And I think you'll be able to coach him up. And similar to Patrick Mahomes, who made a lot of throws that you question at Texas Tech, you give this guy a chance to sit, learn, and you give him the opportunity to take in what is necessary for an NFL quarterback to be successful. And I think you have the makings of a potential star here in Drew Lock. And so that takes us to our #1 quarterback in the 2019 NFL Draft. Of course, it is Kyler Murray, quarterback out of Oklahoma. So let's talk Kyler Murray and what he brings to the table. 5'9", a $195. We saw him weigh in at the combine at 5'10", 207 pounds. So that puts a little bit of the questions of size to rest. He's still undersized, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's a one-year starter at Oklahoma. Also hoisted the Heisman Trophy in that single season as Oklahoma Sooner starter. 14 career starts in all, 69% completion percentage, 42 touchdowns, over 7 INTs, and 1,001 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns to go along with those 42 touchdown passes as well. So 12-2 overall record at Oklahoma in that Heisman Trophy winning season. You look at his pros, he is a unique specimen at the quarterback position. Yes, he is undersized, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but his explosiveness, his dynamic ability, it's uncanny. It's second to none in this draft. And really, when you start looking at quarterbacks in the league, I don't know if there's another guy in the league currently quite like Kyler Murray. Now, we've seen guys in the past, i.e. Michael Vick, and guys like that that can run at the quarterback position, but the way that Kyler Murray is able to run and get from gear 1 to gear 5, I don't know if we've ever seen that in this league before. Arm talent through the roof, can throw the football any level with ease. That's not up for debate with Kyler Murray, so that's another big pro for him. He's a winner, and I think that's the thing that you gotta love about Kyler Murray the most is you look at this kid And you look at a guy that didn't lose a single game in high school. He comes to Oklahoma. He has to wait his turn. All right. And when he finally gets an opportunity, he goes out and he gets them into the college football playoffs and gives them an opportunity in a game that they were overmatched in against Alabama, but he fought his ass off and gave them a chance in that football game. So there's a lot to like with Kyler Murray and what he brings to the table. I think this guy has supremely gifted vision as well on the football field. You love two-sport athletes, and those guys generally translate well to the gridiron. There's so much to like about Kyler Murray, his ability to extend plays, make things happen, not only with his legs, but like I said, with that vision comes the ability to spot receivers all over the football field and get them the rock. And so a lot with Kyler Murray that separates him, to me, from everyone else in this draft at the quarterback position. You go to his cons, obviously there's the question of baseball. That's definitely something you have to take into consideration when talking Kyler Murray. Is he dedicated? Is he going to quit football if things go south and say, you know what, I want to play baseball? That's always looming in the back of everyone's mind. Is he solely dedicated to being the best NFL QB that he can possibly be? That's always going to be a conversation until it's not. And so that's something that you have to weigh when talking Kyler Murray. Height, obviously the elephant in the room. Yep, he's 5'10". Yep, that's good enough because of Russell Wilson paving the way among other QBs. Doug Flutie. We've seen short quarterbacks in this league before excel. However, will it affect him? It's still NFL level. That's the question. Where guys are more depth getting there. And Kyler Murray, despite his size, you don't see it affect him. Whereas in college football, you're able to escape. It'll be interesting to see how he adjusts to the NFL game with his size. And adversity is something that he really hasn't had a lot of his athletic career. Didn't lose a game in high school, didn't see a lot of adversity at Oklahoma. How does he handle adversity at the next level? If he's selected in the top 5, which we all assume is going to take place, it's going to be to a team that's probably not very good at this moment. How does he handle adversity? Is he a guy that can lift others around him? We will see. And finally, experience. I just talked about this guy only having 1 year of starting at Oklahoma, only 14 career starts. That's also something that you see on tape with some mistakes and some things that rattle his cage a bit. Lack of experience. You'd like to think that with more playing time and more reps, some of those issues will go away. And so those are my top 5 quarterbacks in the 2019 NFL draft. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your top 5 quarterback ranking in 2019? And where will these players land? Leave it in the comment section. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.